The Honourable Christopher Finlayson.
Mr Speaker, along with other members of the House, I want to acknowledge the passing of Sir Graham Latimer, a great New Zealander. I remember him very well in the early days of some of the litigation that the Minister of Education referred to with his lawyers, the late David Baragwanath, QC as he then was, and the late Martin Dawson. They fought great fights for the New Zealand Maori Council and achieved a great deal for their country. Mr Speaker, I noted with interest what Mr Peroni said about the fact that Ngāti Kahu hasn't settled. Well, there are two words that answer that completely, and that's Margaret Mutu. But I hope that one day soon there will be a settlement with Ngāti Kahu, as there have been with the other Te Hiku iwi. Mr Speaker, I suppose it's necessary to make some ritualistic comment about the Labour Green MOU, but frankly I can't be bothered because there are some very serious issues that need to be dealt with. And the first one was adverted to by Mr Brownlee is the all-important core responsibility of government, which is to protect a nation's borders. And he deals with it as Minister of Defence, and that's why there is the white paper which has been published to deal with some of these important issues. But I also deal with it as Minister in charge of the GCSB. And the common issue that Mr Brownlee and I, and also the Minister of Communications, are very worried about is the issue of cyber security. I look at Mr Peroni and he would be an aficionado of the James Bond movies, probably going back to the first one, and he'd remember very well some of the cyber security incidents that occurred in those films, and frankly they all seem to be fantastical and totally unreal, but it's with us now. And I refer, for example, to what happened to the Bank of Bangladesh a couple of months ago when someone hacked into that bank and suddenly well over $100 million was transferred to some accounts in Hong Kong. We all know what happened with Sony Industries when they offended a certain head of state of a certain nation in North Asia. We do know that it's possible for people to hack in and not simply steal money out of accounts, but to play with systems and cause mayhem. So these are very serious issues which should engage all members of Parliament and are ones which greatly concern the agencies for which I have responsibility, which is why we have established a project which is becoming better well known now, called Project Cortex, which is designed to provide security assistance to medium to large-scale companies and also government departments to make sure that these sorts of attacks don't happen. We all know what happened to the Australian Parliament a couple of years ago when there was a cyber attack on that. I think it was shut down for a couple of days. So as we prepare the intelligence legislation for debate in this House, I hope honourable members will realise that these kinds of incidents are not isolated. They are very, very serious, and Mr Brownlee is dealing with them as Minister of Defence to protect the kit so that it can defend our shores. I'm dealing with it as Minister in charge of the GCSB, and of course Mrs Adams mentioned just a little while ago the appointment of the CERT to ensure that businesses get some guidance on how to deal with these issues. So I very much look forward to the forthcoming intelligence debate. These are big issues, and I hope all members will join in that debate with the interests of our country at heart.
Mr Speaker.